Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Lunch with Leaders. It is our first Lunch with Leaders of the year. I was going to say of the term. It is, but of the year of 2023. I hope you're all remembering to write 2023 and not 2022. I don't know what point of the year it takes where I switch over. It's about July. I don't know about you guys, but it takes a long time. So glad you are joining us. We have started on time, which is amazing. So do get eating your lunch if you've got lunch. We would love to know where you are joining us from and what you're eating, if you're eating something exciting. So do type that in the comments and tag someone else. I am joined by the lovely Rachel and Ruth. Have you ladies had lunch yet?
I actually had granola for lunch.
Ooh, I like that. Breakfast for lunch is good. It's good. Yeah. And what about you, Ruth? Because you're in a hotel.
I know the luxury of being in a hotel. I had a big breakfast, so I'm just eating. I think
the joy of the hotel breakfast. Yeah. And where are you ladies joining us from?
I'm in West London today. Yeah, that's where I'm based.
Mm-hmm. And Ruth, you've got a complicated answer.
Yeah, currently in Galway Island. So I'm not normally here, although I have been here quite a few times because I've just joined my husband on a business trip. But normally I'm in Sussex, West Sussex.
Oh, nice. We've got, you're joined. Rachel is watching you from Ireland as well, Ruth. I've just seen in the comments. So. There you are. Little contingents, little shouts out there.
Yeah, love
Fantastic.
Ireland. It's a lovely country.
Yeah. Anyone from West London? I mean, it's a big, dense place. I'm sure.
Why don't we make it big? Anyone from anywhere in the southeast, you can be on Rachel's team. That's cool. And I'm in Milton Keynes, and I never know how to categorize that. We're like on the boundary of all the things. So yeah. I don't know where we are, but that works. Really big hi from me as well. For those of you who I don't know, my name's Anna, and I'm the ministry lead here at Parenting for Faith. Best job in the world. It is fantastic. Just while we're waiting for a couple more people to join, I'm going to tell you about some things we've got coming up and some things that you don't want to miss out on. So we started our podcast series 2 weeks ago. No, last week. We've had 2 episodes, but on what if questions. So often we get you guys getting in contact and saying, I want to help my child or my teenager meet and know God. But what if, and then something follows after that. So we've rounded up kind of the common ones that you ask us. So we started with what if your child's had kind of challenging life experiences, and then we've been looking at what if your child is on the autistic spectrum. We're going to be looking at what if you're the church leader, or you're the church leader spouse, or a church leader in training, what that looks like. And we've got loads more coming up. So if you don't already subscribe to the podcast, go on whatever device you have. I was helping someone yesterday. If you have an iPhone, it's a little purple square you're looking for, and search Parenting for Faith. And if not, just go to our website, parentingforfaith.org/podcast, and that will take you there. Secondly, we have, talking of church leaders, we have a Parenting as Church Leader Day coming up. And this is for anyone who is a leader. So that doesn't just mean the pastor, priest, vicar, curate, minister, elder, whatever you call them in your church. If you are a children's youth or family leader, paid or unpaid, but if you've got a role in church and you've also got children, you are really, really welcome to this day. It's on Monday, the 6th of February. It's within school hours. So if you've got to do a school drop off and a pickup, you can still manage. And we're going to be looking at the really kind of key research from Rachel Turner on what helps families thrive in that situation. There are discussion groups if you want to do that. There's the option to not discuss with anyone if you don't want to. We know people process it in different ways, but if you can make that, I'd really encourage you to. Bookings close on the 2nd of February, so you are going to need to get in quite fast. And if that's not you, but you know someone who's a leader and who has kids, why don't you invite them? If you're really nice and you're able to, why don't you pay for them or get your church to pay for them? That would be great. But do come along to that. And then my final notice is about the Forge Gathering. We have, big applause please, we have managed to release both dates for the Forge Gathering this year. So the Forge Gathering is in person. It's not even on Zoom. It's real people, real chocolate cake, real hugs, loud worship where you can move around. And we get together for 3 days and we're just family and community. It's a bit like Lunch with Leaders, but over 3 days. We have a lot of fun. And we work in groups together to look at where we're at in our ministries, what's going on, and to support each other, pray for each other, and work together. So you can join us in May, or you can join us in November. One is a bit more south and one is a bit more north, but feel free to be led by the dates if that's more helpful for you. That is all I've got on notices. So let's get into the meat of today, because I am so excited about this and I want to give as much time as possible to it. So let's start off. Rachel and Ruth, would you both be able to just introduce yourselves, who you are and what you do in your work?
Sure, I'll go first. Is that okay, Ruth? Yeah. My name is Rachel. I'm based in West London, like I said. I'm actually originally from Brazil, so that's where you can hear the accent there. Currently, I live with Dave, who's my husband. He's a vicar. We've got 3 birth children. We've also got a cat and a dog living in the house. Previously, we were foster carers, but now I'm in the very privileged position of supporting other foster carers and adopters that I know. But so we're taking a break from fostering. Ruth, over to you.
Thanks, Rachel. Yes, so I live in Sussex, like I say, with my family. My kids are grown up, but one of them is adopted. My husband and I also fostered years ago before we adopted. My career as an occupational therapist has led me to some really interesting things, and more recently in the last sort of 10 or so years, specialising in working with children who've been through trauma. So a lot of adopted and fostered children were on my caseload. Also, I'm a church leader, and I'm currently doing a master's in attachment, which is extremely exciting and interesting. And yeah.
Fantastic. Can you hear the weight of wisdom and experience? Every time they said something, they were like, oh, and here's this other hat, by the way, I've researched this, and I'm a leader, and I absolutely love it. And these ladies have been working with us, along with Fiona from Safe Families as well, to help us to think through how to make parenting for faith really relevant and helpful for fostered and adopted families. We really want to make sure that we are, as much as we can, supporting and equipping all families to help children meet and know God. And if you're here today, you probably care about that too. So we're thrilled to go on that journey with you. But I'd like to hand over to Rachel first, because Rachel has been doing some really in-depth research on this that hasn't been shared a lot yet, I don't think. I don't want to say it's a world exclusive, but you know, we're up there, I think. And just to help us from this perspective, you know, we as children's, youth and family leaders, we want to support all families. We don't always feel equipped to know how to do that. So can you just tell us a little bit about that research and what the kind of key findings were? I know that's a big question, but you know, some highlights would be amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I absolutely love Parenting for Faith's heart. And yeah, thank you for giving us this platform to share some of the findings. Obviously, the report is actually coming out later this week, and I'm hoping to just whet your appetite, and then you'll go and find the report to get more of the details. The title of our report is Beyond Do's and Don'ts, Journeying with Parents and Carers. And this is really to emphasize one of the key findings in our report, that really good relationships are at the heart of good support. So obviously there is a place for lists and techniques and strategies and training. Absolutely, dive into that. But if they don't come wrapped in a good relationship, they are unlikely to feel very supportive to the parent and carer. I mean, as Christians, this feels completely obvious to us, I'm sure. After all, the 2 great commandments call us to have flourishing relationships with God and also then flourishing relationships with each other. But so some of you may be thinking, why do we need a whole 41-page report that kind of highlights this, that underlines it? And I think the answer is that at Biblical Counselling, we understand that there's a lot of nuance about how we love God and how we love each other. And I'm hoping that the report will bring out some of those aspects of how we do that well. Anna, I was thinking that I could share 2 illustrations. Would that help kind of get people
That'd be
to understand
brilliant. Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. Well, one of the ones that is really obvious to me is the offer of help that we often hear of meals. Okay, so we discovered that 88% of our participants receive some form of practical help from church. That's great. Of those 88%, 56% said that they received meals from church, which is, again, great. But then when we went to do some interviews and asked about that, we discovered that each individual family had a different view of how helpful meals were. So this is a gamut of experiences. One person said, oh, I would really love it if church could offer meals more regularly to me. The other person said, I cannot stand another well-meaning lasagna.
It's always lasagna as well, isn't it?
It's always lasagna, yeah. Someone else said to me, I actually, instead of a meal, I would just love to be invited to somebody's home, as a family. And then somebody else said, actually, I can't think of anything worse than being invited to somebody's house. And so even in that little example, you have an illustration of how a very simple offer can actually land really differently with individual families. And without a good relationship with a parent and carer, what happens is that then becomes, people feel unseen, like you're offering something that isn't really helping, and maybe they will actually want to say, instead of a meal, could we have vouchers, and if they don't have a good relationship, they don't feel like they can really say that. The only other illustration I can think of is that well, there are lots of illustrations, but one that would be helpful here is that actually we discovered that support is not a one and done thing. So it's great when church asks, what would you like what can we do to help? But actually, over time, the answer to that question is going to look really differently, and it's going to require different things from church. So particularly the teenage years was a time that was highlighted quite significantly in our research as a time when potentially church support tails off, possibly because the issues are bigger, or possibly because church is tired maybe of helping. We had 91 people respond to our sorry, my Outlook is kind of beeping at me here. We had 91 people respond, and out of 91 people, so 100% said that a support network was absolutely vital for them to thrive as a family. And that's really significant because 72%, so almost three quarters of the people who responded had been parenting for 5 years or more. So these are not new parents, these are parents who are, let's say, long in the tooth, and actually still require support today. So support is not a one and done thing. You need a really good, close, committed, ongoing relationship with the church leader or the church leaders, so that you can kind of track these changes and be able to respond to them. And actually, occasionally, church will have to say, I'm really sorry, but we really can't help you with this. But let's see how we can secure that support elsewhere. And that's really important too. And again, a safe relationship allows for those really good negotiations to happen in a safe environment. That's helpful for the parent, but also for the church.
And those are they're really helpful. And they're such good practical examples, because I think there's a balance here, isn't there? There can be a fear of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. But then people do nothing. And I often think that's worse because the support is so needed. But just that example of kind of the breadth of different things that might be helpful. And we all know in relationship, you feel okay to say, oh, actually, that's not quite what would be helpful. Thank you for thinking of us. This would be helpful. But when it comes from someone you don't know, that's very difficult. So I wanted to ask you both, we're kind of here as children's, youth and family leaders primarily, though I'm sure lots of us are going to be talking to kind of our main church leader about this, particularly when your report comes out, Rachel. So we'll put a link so people can share kind of some of the key stats and figures and things from that. But as kind of children's, youth and family leaders, there can be barriers that stop us connecting with families, particularly these adoptive and foster families. In your experience, so both of you, Rachel and Ruth, and what do you think some of those barriers are, and what could we do as leaders to overcome those? What small steps could we take to do that differently, do you think?
Ruth, you go ahead and start. I've talked a lot.
Yeah, I love what you said, and I'm just fully in awe of your project, because what I read was so exciting to read, and I think it uncovers an awful lot of things. I think the barriers very often are lack of training and knowledge. I think what I see from my work running Join the Dots, which I didn't mention earlier, is primarily to help equip and train churches and Christian organisations in the impact of trauma. I think people are afraid that they don't know enough, or I think the other thing is that people wonder if what they're going to say is or do is going to be enough. I think people wonder if perhaps they need to do more than they actually do need to do, because sometimes it is the very simple things like acknowledging a child, or talking to a parent, being a listener, and sometimes saying the wrong things. Yes, it isn't good, but I think it's listening and just being empathic, really just sort of hearing what someone says and understanding that their world is very different to the regular parent, the regular family. It may not be that different, but generally, I think, Rachel, you probably agree, generally families with foster or adopted children are going to be quite different in their boundaries, the way they have to care for their children, and their priorities different.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that came out very clearly in our report is that actually it shouldn't be down only to the parents and carers to kind of upskill and teach the church about it. Really, the onus is on us to look for the basic information. I mean, not that it's just the basic information, but I guess a really good way that I've like a way that helps with relationships is to say to parents and carers that you know, can you suggest a book or a resource or a blog that you've read? Because actually sometimes we forget that the parents and carers themselves have been on an incredible learning journey. Nobody starts this journey from a place of knowing, so they will have things that they can suggest. And I wonder if I can kind of talk about an uncomfortable barrier, and
absolutely.
I really prayed about this, but I really felt that this was the right thing to do on behalf of parents and carers. One of the things that has been absolutely stunning to me in our research is just the depth of honesty and insight that parents and carers have. In some ways, that's part of the assessment journey. You have to really look inward, and you have to keep doing that as you're parenting children from hard places. And they, in a sense, confess to me that part of the reason that support is not so forthcoming is because they struggle to ask for help. They, in their hearts, they struggle with issues of pride, of self-sufficiency, of unhealthy independence. And I think as church leaders, we owe it to the parents to kind of sit with the hard things in our heart as well that create barriers to offering help, because it's going to be messy. Offering help is going to be messy, and it's helpful for us to kind of sit with that and to notice the things, the sin or the things that rise up in us that make us want to kind of back away. And I think that is a real issue for both the parent and carer, who say quite clearly in the report some of the things, but also the church leader to do that heart work as well.
It's such a good point, and thank you for bringing that up, because I think that is I think we can all relate to that, at different stages of our Christian journey, or And maybe it's not this particular issue, but when we've gone through challenging times and actually need help, it's so hard to ask for it, and it's hard to know what help would be most useful as well. So I think keeping that perspective in mind is really useful. I was wondering, Ruth, whether you could give us some kind of different examples of some of the different circumstances and different things that we might be talking about here. I know this is a short time and we're going to give some options for more training and more detail. But you alluded to there, actually the parenting journey of an adoptive parent or a foster parent looks quite different. So what sort of things, you've got a family that come up on a Sunday morning, maybe they're new or whatever, and they, smile and fill in the child's name or whatever. What might be going on under the surface there that would be helpful for us to be aware of?
I think one big thing is usually with adopted or foster, particularly adoptive families, there's a lot of loss behind the scenes. And I think one thing to also be aware of is that often when we hear that a child is adopted, we jump to the conclusion, oh, that particular couple or individual couldn't have their own children due to infertility. And that might be the case. It might not be the case, because many people choose to adopt and particularly choose to foster for different reasons. So I think it's important to think about that side of the journey. The journey might have involved loss, in which case there's pain there. And, that pain, it's important not to assume that it's due to infertility or some kind of painful difficulty like that. But it's also important to recognise that it might be, and that that's something that will carry with that whole family. There's loss for the child as well, a huge loss. Any child that's adopted or fostered has been through such a lot. And I remember when we first adopted, how people said our son was 2.5 when we adopted him. Oh, that's good, he won't remember anything from beforehand. And I just hate that phrase, because it's not true at all. And we so know now from the neuroscience of the last few years that the body remembers things. And even if the child doesn't remember anything that sort of overtly remembers, their body remembers. And so there is body memory there that can be triggered by something in the current situation. So remembering the current situation could trigger a past memory is a big thing. And I think the journey of an adopted or adoptive family is sometimes adoptive families feel that they don't want to, or feel they have to unload every detail to someone. I remember when our son started school, and I took the view that actually it was important for school to know something, but they don't have the right to know everything. And so it's kind of knowing what to share with the school and what to share in the church context with the church, children's workers, youth leaders, particularly with teenagers. That's a very tricky one, because it is the young person's news to share. But then the dilemma is there are sometimes you need to share something because it will help the youth leader, children's worker, to understand that child better. So I take the view that people need to know something. What you tell them, I think many adoptive parents are very private, others are not, and finding that balance is very difficult. And so for church or youth leader, I think it's important that they are sensitive to that, but it takes skill as well. I don't think I want to frighten youth and children's workers at all, because there's a level of skill needed, but it's also about just drawing alongside the parents.
And actually what you already alluded to there was the best thing, the most important thing you can do is listen well. And actually not all of us may feel we have the skills or the training or the background, but we can all listen. And what you've said there about the individual situation and circumstances, that sounds to me like it would always be helpful for a children's or youth leader to say, I'm here, I'm ready to listen, anything you want to share with me. I'm not asking for details or any information, but if there are things that you think would be helpful and relevant for me to know, I'm all ears, and we would love to think about what we might need to adapt or do differently or be aware of in your particular situation. And that might lead to other conversations and other things, but that sounds like a helpful starting point. Did you have anything to add there, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, the issue of listening came up a lot. And one of the things that parents and carers talk to me a lot about is finding people who get it. And so we kind of dug a little bit into that in our research, and we asked parents to describe to us who that person was. And the first thing that came on that list was somebody who listens. And consider that that's even more important than somebody who actually has adopted and fostered themselves. Because actually the danger is that if you've adopted and fostered, you think that everybody's story is the same as yours, which is my danger, my constant danger. So I've had to teach myself how to listen to foster carers and adopters, because I have my own experience. I think that kind of covers everybody else's, but it's so nuanced. Again, going back to relationship, and starting with listening, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, and that's actually a principle that's applicable a lot more broadly. We always say in Parenting for Faith, you're not, even if you are a parent or a carer in some respect, you're never saying to people, parent like me. That's not helpful. And actually that can make us feel very insecure and not want to share anything. What we're saying is every child, every family is unique. And the parent or the carer is the expert in that child. They're going to know more than anyone else. They spend more time with them, all those kind of things. And actually just to be open to God's leading of the next step. Again, we don't have to have the whole picture. We don't have to have all the answers, but what might the next step be for that child or that parent in that situation? And, that's true for anyone. There's all sorts of issues and complexities and wonderful variety in all sorts of families. And I think having that mindset is really helpful. I can see some questions coming in already. I can see Ruth wanted to share something else. So I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. But if there are any other questions, please do pop them on now, because I'd love to put those to Rachel and Ruth. And then in a moment, we will stop live streaming. We'll stop this more public conversation. And if you would like to come and join us on Zoom, we're going to chat a little bit further in breakout rooms for you to really pull apart, okay, what does this look like in my context? But any questions, don't wait till the last minute, because we always run out of time. So pop those in now. But yeah, Ruth, did you want to add something in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say something about behaviour. I think in church, children's and youth work, we focus a lot on behaviour and the good Christian family who, the child behaves well. And if we meet a child that doesn't behave well, we often jump to this conclusion that they are not brought up properly or there's something wrong with the parenting. I think in the context of fostering and adoption, it's really important to look behind the behaviour. I mean, I think actually all children's and youth workers, anyone in church, we need to look behind behaviour in every context, but particularly in this one. And so it's understanding that a behaviour that you're seeing, or a behaviour that a parent might report to you, is it might seem extreme and you might think, oh wow, that's crazy, but actually it's believing it is really important, and recognizing that behavior is communication. I think that's a big one. Every behavior is there to communicate something, and it's about unpicking it in every single child we work with or young person. What is that behavior trying to say? And if we have that framework, we'll go a long way with understanding the kids that we see.
Yeah, and just once again, it's useful information for all of us. There might be people watching who think, oh, at the moment we don't have any adoptive or foster families in our church community, but these are skills that are actually helpful much more broadly. And there may be some in the future. Would an adoptive or foster family feel welcome in your community and like there was provision and support for them? I think this is really relevant and really important, even if it's not, doesn't seem like the issue that's top of the list at the moment. I'm going to go to a question now. This is from Jess, and she asks, any suggestion of ways and language that churches can use to signpost that they are welcoming spaces for adoptive and foster families? Also, anything to avoid?
Yeah, actually, I used to work for Home for Good, and their training on this is really, really helpful. So absolutely, we're also here to kind of signpost to things like that. And I remember vividly that one of the realizations I had, that saying, you know, parents take your children over to a kids group, is not a good way, because you don't know who's going to be in, and actually even grandparents will be around. It's not just foster and adoptive families. So in our church, we say grown-ups and their children do X and Y, and we feel that that's more inclusive, not just of adoptive foster families. I would also say, make sure, particularly with foster families, ask them what they want to be called or how they want to be referred to, because even little children, they may start to refer to mom and dad eventually, but that's their choice. And it's good to know from the foster carer what they are, so what they are to the child, as it were. So often it will be a first name, but there could be another pet name or something that's developed between them that's helpful to use. But certainly there are other people who would say that would be able to articulate that better than me. I'm here just to kind of use the voice of the parents and carers to kind of tell you about support for them.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And I have to admit, I cringe every time people say, you know, is mum or dad here? Or because you think, you just don't know. You know, and I think it's not a hard switch to use some language, which is, you know, it's the grown up you came with here to pick you up, or parents and carers, and even in things like when we were doing the babies and toddlers course videos, we were very careful to not suggest that all children come into a family at birth. Or that's how they arrive, because it's just not everyone's experience. And I think more the language on your website and in your, you know, anything that they might see beforehand, any way that you're welcoming, it sounds to me like that might be a helpful indicator of a church that understands there are different types of families and is ready to welcome them. We are starting to run out of time. If there are any other questions, do pop them in, and we can always contact these guys afterwards as well. So if you have any burning questions, please don't let them go. But I just wanted to end by asking both of you, really, Rachel and Ruth, we've talked a little bit about the need for training and for more resources and all those kind of things. And we are going to be looking specifically at trauma at our Lunch with Leaders in April. We've touched on that a little bit, but not very much. But can you suggest any links, any resources, any training that might be helpful for people who want to go a little bit further with this?
I'm probably biased, but running Join the Dots, we do provide training to churches and faith groups in these specific things. We have a website, I don't know if it's going to be put up there, which you can look at. We can make bespoke training. Other organisations that I go to is TLG runs some great courses, the Emotional Roller Coaster, and I know the people who run that are very trauma informed and aware of these things. So that's a great course. If people want to go into more depth, then Trauma Informed Churches is another one that runs really more kind of detailed courses over more longer periods for people to do. And I think it's important to recognise that some people need that more in-depth training. It depends what you do. But the more people in your team that can get trained, the better, is what I say.
Wonderful. And yeah, thank you. All those things are excellent. And we'll make sure when we write this up, we'll put links to those. I'm sure they're pinging in Facebook already. Do you have anything to add, Rachel? You obviously mentioned Home for Good there.
Other than reading my report, which I would love you guys to do, and there will be a link for that as well. The Home for Good book, this is the old version. If you've read it during the assessment process, my suggestion is reread it with the family post-placement, because I think that's something that people don't do as often. People often read it in the run-up to assessment, which is great, but it also has a lot of things to say after placement as well. But this book here, Replanted, Faith-Based Support for Adoptive and Foster Families, really looks at support from all angles. It's in an American context, and you have to really kind of pare it down, but it at least helps you give a much more in-depth look at support, and raises great questions at the end of the chapter for both parents and for the support network. So yeah, those are the two, my report, and then the other two books. Thank you.
That's brilliant. That's so helpful, ladies. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom and sharing those things. We are so grateful for you being part of our community, and we would just love you to keep sharing. Like, please keep posting stuff. Please keep nudging us and prodding us to be better at this. We want to come alongside you. We want to support well. And we're so grateful for any kind of guidance that you can give us on that.
Thanks for the opportunity, Anna.
Oh, no, absolute pleasure. And please come back and do check out Join the Dots. We posted it at the beginning. We'll post it again because Ruth really does know her stuff. And if you're able to access that, I would really recommend it. What we're going to do now is continue this conversation a little bit more. People always say offline. It's not offline, but just on Zoom rather than on Facebook. So I'm going to stop live streaming to Facebook. If you're a hide behind your computer person or we need to rush off to something else, thank you for joining us. It's been wonderful. We'll be back next month where we're talking about tackling big questions. And we're going to have Rachel Turner, the founder and grandmother of Parenting for Faith, will be back to help us with that. But if you are able to stay a little bit longer, feel free to munch your sandwich while you're doing it. We'll post the link to the Zoom chat right now, and come and join us. And I would love us to tease out in small groups a little bit more. Okay, here's the situation in my church or my life or my community right now. What's one thing that I might be able to do and take away something practical? So thank you so much for joining us. Do click on that Zoom link and come and join us, and we'll continue the conversation a little bit more. Bye.